Ray?
Yes.
Yes. Bob?
Yes.
Becker?
Yes. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Moving to manager's report.
So we received some good news that the Duquesne sidewalk project that we submitted to ODOT has made it past the first hurdle, if you will, and then they've invited us to submit full application, which I think is a really good sign. We also cleared up some type of hurdle for our West Salem Street stormwater project today. Talked to the grant people, and they want us to put a public notice out. It's going to go out next week about the project. So if you read the paper, you'll see that it's standard. It's a FEMA program, so they require us to put the public notice out. Not necessarily means that we're definitely going to do the project, but it's a public comment notification, and we'll post that just as they say in a paper, just one day in local newspaper, and just got it today. So it'll go out the week of the 11th. So that's a really good sign. We've never participated in that grant program, and we won't know for sure until probably August or September. But I would say this is a really good sign. Okay, the approval of DORA application that we passed in I think that was January, February. The approval of that application was sent to the Division of Liquor Control. They have asked us to clarify several items in order to create the outdoor refreshment area. We also have to hire an engineer to do the boundaries. If you remember the map, it's kind of primitive. Made on Google. They just want us to, get an engineering stamp, which is fine, and we're in the process of doing that. On the agenda for today, we had to publish in the paper that we were considering a few more things on the DORA, and we did that in 2016. That was also in the paper today. That's on the agenda, and those are the signs that when we come to that, you can take a look at those. We've been working on the CRA reinvestment area. We have already received two the commercial application. Our negotiating committee had met, and we needed to do some research. That research was finished up today, and tomorrow we will be calling the negotiating committee to finish that process up for those two applications. I believe, one of them's here tonight, so we've got to go ahead and move forward. So let's see. I'm giving the 2018 overview presentation at the chamber this Friday. I'm very happy to do that. Probably read in the paper that that economic development retention project that we've been working on with Columbiana Boiler. Tad Harold and I presented to the school board really well, and we did hear from Columbiana Boiler, and they said great job. It's a big step forward to help us get the project moving forward and to get it funded. So it's a big step. Tonight, Mike prepared the budget appropriations for first reading. The last three items, we're advertising for asphalt on the 4th. Excuse me. We'll open the bids on March 14th for asphalt, and asking you to consider emergency legislation on the 19th so we can get to the plant as soon as they open and get that good rate so we can fill the pothole holes in a better than just a cold mix. We were working on the fire contract. The Chief and I have been working with Mr. Hung from Fairfield Township, we do have, we have it ready to go. Just met with them yesterday, and there will be an increase, and we think we think it'll cover our costs, and that will be also an emergency on the 19th. And then today I got a letter from Comcast, so it's probably new territory for me, but we had what they call a franchise for Comcast. It was 15 years old, and it expires at the end of this year. But since we did that in the last 15 years, there's been some updates with the state of Ohio, and the way that franchises are treated now. They're not even called franchises anymore, but for lack of a better term. So we received notification that Comcast did their thing at the state level, and we have, they said 10 days to respond. So Mark and I were on the phone with the original attorney today that created the ordinance for us back then, and talked to Comcast today, and they've accepted we do not need to have a special meeting, which that's what we thought we were going to have to do. We're going to put it as emergency on the 19th, and it is to, it's going to be a lot like the original one we did in 05, but in 13 they've really updated some stuff, and it's now, you don't negotiate it, it's just, it is what it is, defined by, I believe it's how revised code, so we'll prepare that ordinance and get that ready.
What would happen if we didn't do an ordinance? What would happen if we told them to go fly back?
We're gonna get 0% of the franchise fee.
So we can't put any pressure on them as far as the community is concerned.
No,
No.
yes.
The law changed about 2007, did away with the franchise agreement, and the last time that the city did this, it was actually a negotiation. Couple of years after that, the law changed. Now they call it a video service provider fee. It's pretty much right in, there's a statute I'm looking at right now, and there's no more negotiation, no more, it's pretty much, at this point, more cut and dry.
We're essentially just renting them the space on our utility poles to run their wires and do what they want to do.
Because people scream and holler about monopolies and stuff like that. This is one of the worst monopolies I've ever seen in my life. Every year.
Although many more people are starting to cut wires and go back to antennas or streaming video, and they also have competition from both Dish and DirecTV. So they don't have the pure monopoly they had when they first came in.
But right now, they still got enough that every year they jump that thing about $25.
Yeah. That's why I don't use it.
Okay, street department, of course they plowed and salted a lot, just doing a great job to put 20 tons of cold patch down, had to fix and repair some trucks. Yesterday they were out in full force patching the holes. We're still in good shape for salt this year. We'll get our last delivery at the end of March, and we'll be all full. I don't believe we'll even try to get the summer salt, if there is one. We did work on brush for 3 days because of the recent storms, and we performed some ditching on Heck Road. Water department, flow meters, we repaired a few at wells 5 and 8. We're looking at the line feeder system. Employees are going through some more training. We've got a new phone system, alarm system out there, and we're doing a line sludge removal. In the budget line item, you'll see this year we've got $100,000 to remove line sludge. If you've been up there to see the lagoon, we're going to try to look at alternatives down the road, and we've already started doing that. Typically, we do $50,000 a year, give or take, but, with the construction the last 2 years, there's no way that we could have got in and out of there, with all that equipment, so we've got some work to do. Wastewater department, did locate, fresh sludge, storm lines, we got a new furnace in, this is the third time's the charm, we're gonna put that in, and, well, actually, it's already in, it's working fine. And we did, have to install some new samplers for the influent and effluent to get the samples so we can run tests on them. We needed to update both of those, so we ordered them and put them in. Park and cemetery, backhoe is out of service, it's in for repair. Tree cleanup in the park, if you went out to the park, it looked like a war zone out there. I think there were 8 trees down Park and cemetery during that last storm. We did drain the pond again before increasing the depth. Electric department, they were out a lot during those the winds. They removed trees off the lines at Kelly Park and East Park. They were out hooking up some services, several places that got knocked off. For anybody that was at the chamber event the other night, I gave kudos out to Chief Garrity for getting the fire station done. I think it's only been a few years that you've been after that. And I also gave kudos to John Rapp, who's done a wonderful job for us out there at the water plant. He came in right before that new water plant came on, construction project, and did a great job. And he came into my office today and said that he saw another opportunity, so he's putting his notice in, and we wish him well. He's done a great job for us. We've seen him, he's worked here for 25 years, and we wish him well. I light up when I talk about watching him grow as a supervisor, and he did a great job. He's really juggling a lot of stuff, and appreciate his time here. We have a succession plan right now out there. I think it'll be fine, at least in the temporary, but it'll be fine. That's one nice thing about our departments. We realize how important succession is, where we can just toss the keys to the next person, at least in the short term. Brian, I think that's it.
Back up just for a second on the podcast.
Yeah.
We have the written material for the, did you say Mark 06?
Pardon?
06 was when, and then they changed.
Actually, 07.
Okay. And then have,
April 2007.
I'd like to read it to for comparison.
Oh, absolutely.
Please.
Yep.
We need a motion to discuss the 2019 budget.
Second.
Any comments? Roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. Need an extra bottle of water?
Well, there's a lot to go over, so I'll try to hit the major funds a little more than the other funds. Probably get through them pretty quickly. Starting with the general fund, as you see, that is where we get a lot of revenue from a lot of different sources that go into the general fund. I did want to point out this year it's down about $300,000, and that was due to a couple things. If you look last year, we had the K-9 donations of over $60,000. We got money from a gas lease revenue of $43,000. The other thing that was we did have more interest, but, with the interest rate going up, but hopefully that's gonna continue and go up with that. But, you can see the revenues. As far as the cable TV fees that you were talking about, we do get about $100,000 in fees, that goes into the general fund. So, and that would be concerning to me. But, also the wages, this is for the, in the general fund, you can see who they're for, other than the police department. They're pretty much the same. The, expenditures, nothing's really changed, in the expenditure portion. There's nothing I put in there for a transfer to the special assessment bond, but that may change later in the year. We'll see how that goes with, the revenue that we get in that fund. Also, there's a separate in the general fund is the police. The police fund the police takes up about 60% of the general fund. The wages will probably be about the same. I'm hoping I knocked down the, overtime a little bit. I'm hoping the chief can knock that back to the 2017 level. I know last year he did a lot of training. He had some, training mandated by the state, which created a lot of overtime. But other than that, the expenditures through, for the police department are pretty much the same, other than the K-9. We got that project off the ground last year, got 60-some thousand in donations, and we spent a little over 64,000 last year also, on that K-9 program. And I don't know, Chief, you want to say anything about that, or?
You'll be getting a report on the activity of the dog and the things that he's accomplished. It's been pretty amazing. We've gotten, probably about 70 arrests or so that we wouldn't even know about, had it not been for the dog detecting. So we anticipate that will continue. We are doing some preliminary research on looking at, expanding on the program and possibly looking at a second dog. We don't know how that's going to look yet in terms of the cost and whether we can meet those costs, but we hope to at least do the research on it and see where we're at with that. Been very successful, and I think it's all worth the time. It's a matter of time before we step on a big one. There's stuff going through here. We'll move for forfeiture if we ever find something that's significant, like you see sometimes on the turnpike and things that are right around us. We're looking for that kind of a stop here that would fund some of this program, and we always move to forfeit anything we find that are proceeds of illegal trafficking. On the human trafficking side, you're seeing a lot more about that, and we are also working some cases with our HEAT program along those lines as well. So all that kind of melds into one program.
Jim, is there any kind of revenue sharing if the dog is called out, goes to Stale and works there?
No, there really isn't. The County Drug Task Force and some of the seizures that come from the prosecutor's office, we get revenue back for that, but Mr. Herron usually earmarks that for the DARE program, and we use those funds to fund some of our DARE activities. Mm-hmm. But in terms of mutual aid agreements, basically we help them, they help us, and we view it as a wash. There's many times when if our dog isn't working, somebody else's is, and we use theirs, they'll use ours, and it kind of ends up being a wash. It'd be nice if we had something like that, but it just isn't really feasible to work that out with the level of activity.
One of the things I do want to note throughout all the departments that we charge health insurance to, with the new health plan, the premiums are a lot lower, so the employees' contributions are lower. But the plan was kind of a hybrid between a fully insured and a self-insured. So we still pay a premium, but we also still pay the claims. And that's what it's a health reimbursement account. So at this point, it's anybody's guess how much it is going to be spent on paying those claims. This is kind of the first year that we went back to sort of like the self-funded, and that's, I'm hoping that it is going to reduce the cost, but we'll see as the year goes on. Also, we do have another vehicle put in the budget for the chief. In fact, he's already ordered it. Street department, pretty much, not much has changed there. We get revenue in the street department from the motor vehicle registration fees and the gasoline tax. And that's been pretty consistent throughout the years. And again, you have the wages and the benefits. Again, I'm hoping the same thing with the hospitalization. The only thing is, that might change, that changed a little bit from last year, is I did put $12,000 in there for paving, out of the street fund. I had nothing in, zero in there last year. So the fund did increase a little bit, so, I'm gonna use a little bit of extra money. The reason I'm doing that is, when we get to the capital project fund, with the ODOT paving project that we have coming on, all the state routes, we needed more money to pay our portion of that project. And we didn't have as much money to spend on our own paving. But, I've come up with about $100,000, and Jesse's okay with that. And I'm taking 12 from here, 58,000 from another fund that we'll get to here, and 30,000 from the capital projects fund. So he'll have about $100,000 to do the paving projects. I did, getting back to step, I did give you a list of all the major projects that we, hope to do this year. Some of them are definitely gonna be done, and some of them we'll see how, if we can get to those. And these are major ones, these are the more bigger ones. Obviously, we're doing other projects, but, and as you can see, just those projects alone amount to $2,754,000 that's in the budget. The state highway fund, again, comes from motor vehicle and gasoline tax, and we use this fund to buy road salt. And as, Lance mentioned, we're pretty good with salt right now, and, Jesse is gonna buy some more to get stocked back up, and hopefully we won't have to do a summer fill, that he'll have enough ready for the fall. Cemetery fund, you know, revenues from there, we get from the sale of graves and tournaments. It's also, funded through the general fund. We transfer money into the cemetery fund. Cemetery and park fund, basically are not self-supporting. That's why money is transferred from the general fund every year. And the biggest portion of that is for wages for the park cemetery manager and the, employees. We also have summer help that we hire to, keep everything looking nice in the cemetery and park. The very low expenses that, we have in the cemetery. Same with the park fund. Now, the park fund, you can see it can vary from year to year, and the revenues can be, and a lot of that is due to the weather. You can see in, 17, we probably didn't have a very good summer. We only brought in 66,000 in pool tickets. For 18, we brought in 81,000 in pool tickets, and we had a hot summer last year. So it can really vary, depending on the weather. But again, they get revenue from the pool tickets, season passes, rentals, concessions, and one of the bigger ones is the pavilion rentals, and that shouldn't stay in deposits anymore, because we did away with the deposits on the pavilion rentals. So you can see the revenue, it was over 60,000, that's knocked down to 35, because we used to, the 60,000 used to include the deposits, which we're not doing anymore. And as you can see, there's some donation in there in the ODNR grant. That was for the Pavilion 3 upgrade that we did last year. The donation was coming from R&B, and of course the ODNR grant. The reason we didn't receive any of that money last year, so I had to put it back in the budget as a revenue for this year, and we actually have already received the money from ODNR, the 9,000, we have gotten that. Again, the wages, that's a big part of their expenses. and we split the park manager and his employees between park and cemetery. But you also have the summertime help, and you have the pool help. And the pool help is the wages are, gonna amount to, about $100,000 a summer. As far as expenses, there's really nothing, that has changed. You can see last year where we paid for the Pavilion 3 ADA and playground improvements, so that money was spent, we just didn't get reimbursed until this year. The bandstand music fund, we get donations for the music in the park, and the biggest item out of there is obviously paying the bands, that perform. The Parks Festival Fund is defunct, it is no longer, and there's a small balance in there at $543. I'm not sure what we're gonna do with that money, but, that is no longer. The Law Enforcement Trust Fund, again, this fund, we hardly gotten any money. Last time we got some money was from the county in 2017, and that was, items that were confiscated by the county with our police's help, and there's really only a balance of $360 in there, so that's all we could really spend if we wanted to spend time on it.
On that park festival fund, is there any way we could just get that during the 4th of July or something to the chamber for 4th of July festivities and drain that account?
And we're rolling over into the bandstand fund.
Or that, yeah. I'll check on that.
Yeah, there's no sense leaving it here, do something.
Right, because it used to be funded through us, and then when they revived it, the chamber took it over, I think, or the tourism board, I can't remember which one, and then they quit doing it too. So there is really no park festival anymore. So, yeah, I'll check on what we can do with that.
Maybe with another thought on that too, you know, we have some things that are in need of repair that need to be done in the park itself. So we kind of maybe check with our park superintendent and see if he has any ideas.
The motor vehicle license fund, again, that comes from, the state license tax, and it's, again, pretty consistent every year is what we get. Normally, I just put in for expenses as what we get in, and this is what we use the money out of this fund for yearly paving projects. This is where I upped it a little bit, that's the $58,000 I talked about earlier that we're gonna use for paving, for our own paving, and, so that's about $10,000 more than what we had the last previous years. The Enforcement Education Fund, again, this is, revenue that we get revenue from, DUI receipts from the county. It's used for community education and related law enforcement expenses. We haven't gotten much over the year, a couple $100, and, the chief does use it for some training and education. The EMS fund, there is a levy for the, EMS, and, I think that was passed 2 years ago. And also, Tom said he's getting a state grant this year of $5,000, and so I just show it down below as a grant purchase. We're gonna get the $5,000 in, and we're gonna spend it on, we have to spend it as being a grant. We also, get money from billing customers. As you can see, what we get charged. Now, I just wanted to make a point was, if it's a Columbiana resident, because of the levy, they are not charged. You know, there is no charge for the ambulance if it's a resident. These would be, from car accidents or any other medical emergency that they were from outside the city.
Mike, I was under the impression that we billed the residents insurance company, if they
We do.
refuse to pay, then we didn't bill the.
Right, then we write it off.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, we will bill the insurance if they have insurance, and if they decline it or deny it, then
You don't charge
the
for it.
person is not charged, it is written off. There's not much, as far as expenses. I know he wants to buy some equipment. I do want to note on the, debt retirement, this is the last payment on, that was for the, ambulance that we bought 10 years ago. And it was a 10-year, loan, and this is payment number 10. So that'll be, finished next year, just in time probably to buy another ambulance. But, there's really not a whole lot of, expenses in there. A big part of his expenses is for supplies, medical supplies that go into the ambulance. The escrow fund, there's no money coming into this fund. This was for when they put that, Route 14 water line in, and they put on the assessments. Well, this was land at 40 and 8. The city actually owns that land. And what that expense is the real estate taxes. We have to pay the real estate taxes because that property is not being used for any governmental purpose. If it's used for a governmental purpose, we are tax exempt. We can apply to the state and we are tax exempt. But that building and that land, we own it, but it's really not used for anything.
Why don't we put a city sign and a flag on it?
I don't know if that would count. Capital improvement fund. Okay, most of the money that comes into this fund we transfer for the income tax. Remember, there is an ordinance where the money we transfer for income, half goes to the general fund, half goes to capital projects. We are still getting, we got most of this money that shows up as the USDA grant for the water plant. Being that the government was shut down for 32 days or whatever it was from December to January, there was nothing we could do with finalizing all the paperwork on the water plant with USDA. Most of that is finished. We got reimbursed for most of it. There is a little bit left out there, like $57,000, that was for some engineering fees that they haven't given us a final bill yet, but that'll also be reimbursed through USDA. There's next couple items. Lance wanted me to put in the OPWC loan and grant on the Railroad Street Stormwater Project. This isn't a total given yet, but it is put in the budget, and I show it as a revenue and an expense, and that's $1.4 million, with $1 million of that being a 0% loan, and $400,000 being a grant. And also the ODOT sidewalk project, which is for the park. That was a grant of $252,700, which we believe is going to happen, and the rest of it, and that was a 95% grant from ODOT, and the other 5% is going to be donated to R&B. So that project will be totally funded with that city funds. And again, that is shown as an expense down below that it equals out. So in the expense portion of it, we usually have a line in there where we do for miscellaneous projects, road repairs, and you can see under the storm sewer project, there's $400,000. We normally do about $200,000, but I'm earmarking about $300,000 of that for the stormwater repairs, and hopefully this year we can get some of those. You also can see the $380,000 for the State Route 164, 14, and 7 paving project, which is will be going out to bid this month, and so we should know exactly when they're going to start. I know talking with Jesse today, that paving project is going to be done at night. It's supposed to be, it was contracted out that the work to be done from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So that, because it's going to be quite a project, and there's a lot of traffic going through those areas. And also one of the bigger projects hopefully we can get to this year is the Metro lift station, which has been a problem for years, and we estimated about a $400,000 expense to either get rid of that or repair it. And, we've kind of split that between capital projects and the sewer fund. So that's $200,000 coming out for each of those funds for that project. And the other ones were the ones I just talked about, the storm sewer, Grove Street storm sewer, and the sidewalk project.
And if we would happen to get that other large grant that we were talking about, we don't know that at the beginning of the meeting, we don't know that would, even be on this year's budget, so we didn't put it in there. You know, I mean, if we put every grant that we applied for in the budget, it would be very unclear.
The cemetery improvement fund, portion of the sale of graves goes into this fund. It's used for improvements in the cemetery. Normally we haven't used this fund very much. We did use it back in 2017 for paving, when we paved the cemetery. So some of that came out of that fund. The capital improvement land purchase fund, this is for the industrial park. There was money put aside into a fund from the sale of the land for when people bought the industrial park, and there's no money coming in anymore. And again, that little bit of expense was for real estate. I think there's a little portion, we pay a portion of the real estate taxes. But if there was to be any improvements, we could use this money to be done for the infrastructure, so like roads, probably curbs. Full renovations fund. This is from an old levy. There's still $3,900 left in there, and again, we used some of it back in 2017 when we were having a problem with the pool heater, and we used some of the money to fix that pool heater, but there is a little bit of money left in there. The fire levy. Again, there is a levy on for the fire department, and I need to remind you that we need to put that on the ballot this year. It has to be put on. The first time you can put it on is in the November general election. So we will be doing that legislation later in the year here, well, pretty soon actually, because there's a couple steps that we have to go through to get that on the ballot. But that does expire this year, but we would still collect the money next year if it did not pass in November. But then if you can put it back on the ballot in 2018, and at that point, if it didn't pass, then it would be done.
Well, if it doesn't pass in November,
It goes 2020.
2020.
Yeah.
In May of 2020.
It's a year behind.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's a year behind.
I'm sorry. No, the collection runs through 2020. So the levy does expire this year.
The levy will go on for vote in November of 2019.
Correct.
All right. You said now, if it doesn't pass then, it can go on
In May of 2020.
2020,
If
okay.
it doesn't pass in May of 2020, it can go back on in November of 2020. Okay, but we will still get the money from the old levy through 2020. Okay, but after that, if it would not pass in November of 2020, it would be done. We would get no more money after 2020. And as far as wages, the salary and wages, it's been pretty consistent, but again, that is based on how many runs that the fire department goes on. So that could fluctuate up or down. One of the things that we do have in the budget, the chief is still buying equipment for the new fire station. So we have some money in there under equipment purchase, so he can buy that. And under vehicle purchases, which was on our list here, he's looking at trying to buy maybe 2 utility trucks, like three F-350s or 150, something in that area. So that is in the budget to buy a couple of fire trucks. And also, it's the second year for the loan payment on the fire station. run number 2, payment number 2. Firestone Park renovation improvements, again, this is from an old levy. We don't get any money coming in. There's almost $11,000 left in that fund. We have used it the last couple of years. We used it in 17 to fix up the, I think it was the visitor side dugouts that were falling in at the baseball stadium, and we used it last year to seal the walking trail. Tax increment financing, this is a TIF project that is on for, it used to be the Valero 714, which is now Sunoco, and the Columbiana Dodge. We do get real estate taxes from that TIF. We really don't spend much money other than the auditor's fees, and again, that can be used for any other improvements that need to be done to those properties. Getting there. Okay. 3 major ones now. The water fund. The water fund is through the sale of water. We also have the water plant fee that we have on the $11, and we also got money in from some of the money we got from USDA just recently. Some of that went back into the water fund because it was spent out of the water fund. Wages have been pretty consistent, and I pretty much just put in again what we did last year, with hopefully the benefits reduced a little bit. Some of the big items that we had in the water fund was that we need to do some repairs. I think Lance touched on one of them, some well repairs to 3, 4, and 5, and which amounts to about $90,000. He was also looking at buying a vac excavator, which was $90,000, and as Lance talked about the lagoon sludge removal, we have $100,000 in there for that. You can see we reduced the budget a lot from the last 2 years, but that's because the water plant was in there. And we just have a little bit of expenses left on the water plant. Other than that, we do transfers. We transfer the money to another fund to pay the bond, and bond payment, that's bond payment and the reserve fund that is required to be set up. The sewer fund, really the only big project on the sewer fund is the lift station. I know Brian has some equipment that needs repaired, and I think it's in the bill list. We just spent $10,000. That was on 2 samplers for the influent and effluent. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I know they're expensive. So we do have some repairs that we're looking at, and we also put some money in for some stormwater repairs. So again, the biggest item was the lift station. The electric fund. This is we are going to spend some money on electric fund. Again, we get the money in from the sale of electric. Doug was looking at maybe adding an apprentice, so that's why the wages have, I bumped up the wages a little bit. He's looking at hiring another apprentice. So that it is, you can see that I did put in about an extra $50,000 in there for the wages. Under the water, or under the electric, again, the big items, these are some really big items we have coming up, some projects. Well, first of all, is the purchase of the new building that we've been trying to buy out at the industrial park. We have money in there for that, and we have money in there for the 7 and 14 loop project, which we've been talking about for a couple of years now. And also, if we would happen to get the money for the Railroad Street stormwater project, we would have to rewrite some electric lines on Railroad Street, which is in the neighborhood of $379,000. So those 3 projects alone are almost $1 million. that we have in the budget for the, coming out of the electric. The rest of these are, funds that we have set up either for the wastewater treatment plant or the water treatment plant. First one is the surplus fund. There's just, money that was put into a fund, that can be used for future debt obligations if we would run into trouble with paying the loan. The wastewater bond retirement fund, they mentioned we transfer money into there to pay the bond. And I believe this is, year 13 or 14 that we've been paying on the wastewater. There's also a reserve fund in the wastewater treatment plant, and this is the final payment. And we do the same thing now with the water treatment plant. We have to put in 1/10 of the final payment each year. So we've already hit the 10 years in the wastewater, so that $372,000 in there is actually the last payment that would be made on the water plant or the wastewater plant, which is due in the year 2045.
So that money is just gonna sit there.
Correct.
It can be invested.
If it will earn interest.
Yeah, it can be invested.
But it sits there to make that money roll.
Okay, it can be invested.
Yes.
Really?
Yes. And then the water treatment plant bond retirement fund, again, this is for payment of the loan, payment of the bond. The money is transferred in from the water department, so that the money is there to pay the payment when it's due. And again, the water treatment reserve fund was the same as the wastewater, but we're only in the third year of that, and that's, we have to put in $38,439 each year, and after 10 years, we will get the final bond payment. Guaranteed deposit fund, this is money that we get in for utility deposits, where we require security deposit on non-property owners, renters, so they have to pay deposit, and then when they leave, we either refund the deposit or apply it to their balance that they might have on their utility account. So basically, that's pretty much in and out what we bring in and what we pay out each year. It's been pretty consistent. Police pension fund. It's part of the levy, the general levy, and we get money from that. And we also transfer money in from the general fund because it doesn't cover the police pension that is required through OPS. Law enforcement continuous training. We haven't used this fund in quite a few years. There is some money in there, but it's used for training purposes for the police. The income tax fund. I want to talk a little bit about this. As you know, our income tax clerk retired last week. Sharon was here almost 29 years. She started in June of 1990. So we do have a temporary helping us out, processing. We're still processing income tax returns. The plan is right now, we are dealing with the RETA conversion. Every week, I meet with representatives from RETA, and I have them sit in on it. It's over the phone. We do it over the phone as to the steps that we have to go through to convert to RETA. Again, the conversion date is July 1st. When it will be turned over to RETA. Up until then, we will be still collecting tax returns here and withholding. Any employees, any businesses still need to remit their withholding taxes to this office and not to RETA until after July. Now, Sharon is going to come back and help us out, I think in April and May, on a temporary basis. She's not being rehired. She's going to come back to a temporary agency, which is a private industry, a private company, so we can do that. But probably for just those 2 months, and then probably near the end of May, she'll be done, and in, like I said, in July 1, it'll be turned over. So as far as in the budget, we've been having, we had a pretty good year last year. Actually, that was our highest year yet. And what was a little bit harder to predict was her wages, because part of that is my salary and part of it is which was her salary. And so I'm still. There is a payout that we have to give her for sick time and vacation. So that 51,000 is an estimate as far as where it might be. And again, the benefits will go down because we will not be paying any hospitalization on Sharon anymore. As far as the expenses, under the contractual services, I had to bump that up because this is where we were paying the temporary out of, and we're bringing Sharon back for 2 months. It's gonna, we're gonna spend a little bit more money there. And you can also see I had $40,000 in there for reading fee. That's based on their estimate of what they said it would cost. And this is half a year. So their estimate was between 80 and 90,000, and they also estimated we would save close to, I think, 20 to 30,000 after, taking in all the considerations of Sharon's salary, benefits, and the expenses that we would have with forms, postage, whatever we would, office supplies. And so the transfers, we use this money to transfer out, as I mentioned, to the general fund and the capital projects fund, and also it's used mostly for refunds. And we also gave out a high in refunds last year. So this fund, it's usually one of the easier ones to budget for. It's a little trickier this year, so we'll see how that ends up. The Feral Trust Fund, that's for the Naval Irene Feral Trust for the cemetery grave, and that money is just to be spent on her grave site. The Columbiana Cemetery Endowment Fund is, this was a donation from the Firestone Trust, and we cannot spend that $100,000. We can only spend the interest that we earn off of that, which hasn't been a whole lot in the last couple of years. Hopefully that'll raise up, but we don't really spend any of that money. Unclaimed money fund, these are stale data checks where after 5 years we can transfer any of those stale data checks that people have not cashed back to the general fund to be used for whatever purpose. Self-funded, again, there's money in the self-funded, and I know we're probably going to have to do something with that this year. Talking with the auditors from last year, we thought we were going to use that for the new insurance plan, but we went a different route. So this money, I think, it'll be put back to the different departments, because that's where the money came from originally, from all the different departments. So we have to figure out how to do that. Cemetery Trust Fund, Firestone Cemetery Trust Fund. This is money we get from earnings from the trust that was set up, and the money we spend is for the maintenance of the Firestone burial area. The Firestone monument. The Burton Liston Cemetery Trust Fund, again, this was a trust fund set up for the Burton Liston families. $30,000 was the principal amount that we cannot spend. We can't spend the interest. I did want to note just a little bit of money that we may get, or we'll be getting. You can see I put in a line item, gas lease proceeds. I don't have a number in there yet, but we got a notification from one of the gas company that it was the Liston, I forget her first name, I think it was or something. She owns land down in West Virginia, and they were selling the gas rights, and we were to get a portion of it, for this fund. We do have her original will on file, and when you look at the will, they willed money to 16 different community, organizations. So we're only like getting like 5%, I think, of whatever, the money. So they said it's gonna amount to about $1,100. I put the line item on there, but I wasn't sure exactly. And the last two, yay, are the bond retirement fund for the, dirt sweet, dirt filled sewer assessment and the 7 and 14 water assessment. And this is where we get money in from the real estate taxes that pays the, loan. And this loan, these bonds will be paid off in 2024. And then the special assessment one was for the, the sewer line on those assessments on Lot 14. And this one will be paid off in 2025. I know that was a lot.
Sit in on it for a couple of years, you start to see a pattern, and it makes a little bit more sense in the first year you're sitting up there.
Yeah.
Need a motion to approve the budget now? Well, there's motions to appropriate and move things, but I don't know, normally you make a motion to accept the budget and then move them.
I'll make a motion to accept the budget.
Second.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I received the bill list for March 5th. Any comments on it? No, there's no old business. Due to the length of the ordinance, is going to have a motion to read them by title only.
Second.
Roll call.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Ordinance number 19-0-2997, first reading. The ordinance creating a designated outdoor refreshment area known as DORA and enacting regulations for the city of Columbiana.
So moved.
This is where we're discussing the,
Yeah, so we've already approved the application that's been sent in. The only, two items that are really left. We have to, for us to get the temporary signs, some images, and there's a couple pages worth there, and prices. It goes from the very inexpensive, cone, $60 up to $130. And these units usually have ballast in them. You can, so they have some weight. Either the second half of the bottom sheet there, that brown one, it'll be filled with sand. And the same with, the yellow one. And that middle one on the first page. We did get a sample of the top one there with the cone base. I'd recommend doing something a little bit more fancy than that.